Hello everyone and welcome to Blyville, Global Connections with eSIM and SIM cards. Today we will guide you through eSIM on blocked phones, the truth revealed. Stay with us to find out how to travel always connected and without worries.
Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever had that really frustrating experience? You're abroad, your phone just refuses to connect to a new eSIM.
Oh, yeah. You land, you're all set to get connected right away.
You scan the code, feel like a savvy traveler.
And then, bam, nothing. Just error messages. Or it just won't activate.
It's maddening, right?
It really is. And it feels like, it goes against the whole point of eSIM technology.
Exactly. eSIM was meant for flexibility, swapping carriers easily, no fiddling with tiny plastic cards, ideal for travel.
But for so many people, especially, say, in the US or parts of Europe, that freedom just isn't there. It's blocked.
And that block, it almost always comes down to one thing, the carrier lock. So for this deep dive, we've gathered, a bunch of sources, articles, notes, research. There's one really key piece from the Blyville blog, International eSIM on Carrier-Locked Phones. The truth you need to know.
That's a good one.
Our mission here is to really get to the bottom of this contradiction. Understand why it still happens even with modern phones, and figure out what you can actually do about it to get connected when you travel.
Right. So we'll start with what carrier lock actually is, and maybe more importantly, the business reasons, the why behind it.
Then we'll get into the technical side.
Yeah, the nitty-gritty of how it specifically messes with activating an eSIM. We'll touch on those pretty rare cases where it might work on a locked phone.
Okay.
But mostly focus on why it usually won't work, especially with those travel eSIMs you buy online.
And then solutions.
Yeah.
Because just knowing the problem isn't enough. We'll spend a good chunk of time on unlocking your phone.
The proper ways, the criteria, how long, the costs, all that.
Yep. And what if you can't unlock it right away?
We've got alternatives covered, too. Practical stuff for travelers stuck with a locked phone for now.
And crucially, how to check if your phone's locked before you even buy an international eSIM.
Definitely need that check. We'll also look a bit at the future, where things might be heading with eSIMs and carrier rules, and wrap up with some solid travel planning advice from the sources.
Sounds good. So let's dive in. The core issue. What exactly is carrier lock?
So based on what we've read, it's essentially a software restriction. Phone companies, particularly common in the US and some parts of Europe, they build this restriction right into the phones they sell.
And it's not just some technical thing. There are clear economic reasons behind it, right? The sources mention that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. Carriers often give you a discount on that expensive new smartphone, right?
Yeah.
They subsidize the cost when you sign a contract.
Right, you pay less up front.
Exactly. So the lock is basically their insurance policy. It makes sure you stick with them, finish your contract before you can just hop over to a competitor. It's about, protecting their investment, keeping customers loyal, and controlling their market share.
Which brings us right back to that frustration for travelers. You've got this amazing eSIM tech designed for flexibility.
And boom, the carrier lock just cripples it. It takes your fancy eSIM-capable phone and says, nope, you can only talk to my network and maybe a few pre-approved friends.
So you grab that cheap international eSIM deal online.
And your phone just says no, flat out refuses to use it.
Okay, so how does the phone actually do that? How does it enforce the lock when you try adding a new eSIM? How does it know who's allowed?
The sources lay it out pretty clearly. When you try to add that new eSIM profile, usually scanning a QR code, your phone starts a firmware check. It's looking at the network information baked into that eSIM.
Okay, so it reads the info.
Yep.
Then what's the next step?
It checks that information against an internal approved list. Step 1. QR code scan reads the new operator details. Step 2, and this is the crucial bit, the whitelist check.
A whitelist?
Yeah, your locked phone has this list of mobile network operators it's allowed to work with. And that list, it usually just has your original carrier and maybe some official partners they have agreements with.
And if the operator from the new eSIM you're trying to add isn't on that special list?
That's step 3, activation lock. The phone's software just blocks the new eSIM profile from installing properly because the operator isn't authorized.
Leading to step 4.
That lovely error message you see on your screen?
Ah, yes.
Yes.
Those messages.
Yeah.
The sources listed a few common ones, and they make total sense now. Things like unable to activate cellular plan.
Or plan not supported by device.
eSIM activation error.
Or just plain operator not compatible.
They all basically mean the whitelist check failed.
Exactly that. Now, while most international eSIMs are going to fail on a locked phone, the sources do mention a couple of very specific niche situations where it might work.
Really? A glimmer of hope.
A very small glimmer. And it really depends on your original carrier and the specific international provider. One case is carrier partnerships. Your home carrier might have very specific deals, like roaming agreements or business partnerships, where they actually allow certain partner networks eSIMs onto their locked phones. The source used an example, like maybe a Verizon phone could potentially accept an eSIM from a specific international carrier they have a deep partnership with.
Okay, so not just any travel eSIM, but a specific partner's eSIM.
Precisely. The other rare case is same group eSIMs. If your phone's locked by a big parent telecom company,
Right.
it might accept an eSIM from a smaller carrier that's actually owned by the exact same parent company. Like if a major carrier owns a few budget brands, an eSIM from one of those might work on the main brand's locked phone if their internal systems allow it.
But based on everything else we've seen, that sounds, well, highly unusual, not the norm, especially for those convenient independent travel eSIMs people buy online.
Absolutely exceptions. The failure scenarios are way, way more common when you're looking for that easy international connection. Locked phones, they'll almost always flatly refuse eSIMs from
Let me guess.
any competing operator in your own country, obviously.
Right.
Those general international eSIMs from travel providers, the ones marketed specifically for trips,
Okay.
virtual network operator, MVNO, eSIMs, think like Mint Mobile or Google Fi, companies that use the big networks but aren't the main carrier.
Got it.
And prepaid eSIMs from different countries that you might try to pick up when you land. Forget about it if the phone's locked.
So the big takeaway here,
Yeah.
planning a trip, see a great deal on an international eSIM. If your phone is carrier locked, that eSIM is almost certainly not going to work unless you hit that tiny lottery chance of a specific partnership.
That's the cold, hard truth coming from the sources, yeah. And that truth points directly to the main solution they all highlight. You really just have to unlock your phone.
And the simplest, most above-board way is usually going through your original carrier, isn't it?
Correct. And regulations, thankfully, in places like the EU especially, are making this easier. Most big carriers have clear policies for unlocking once you meet certain conditions.
What kind of conditions are we talking about?
The sources list the usual ones. Your contract needs to have finished, or you've paid any early termination fees.
Okay.
Your payments have to be up to date for a certain period, often like 60 or 90 days.
Makes sense.
The phone itself needs to be fully paid off, no remaining installments.
Right.
And your account just needs to be in good standing, generally, no flags or issues.
So yeah, you can't just get a new phone on contract today and unlock it tomorrow. You've generally got to fulfill your side of the deal first. What about those third-party unlocking services the sources mentioned?
Yeah, they're out there. Websites offering to unlock your phone for a fee. But the source material is pretty blunt about the risks.
Like what?
Well, for one, using them might void your phone's warranty. There's also a real risk your phone's security could be compromised malware, weird modifications, that kind of thing. And depending on where you are, the legality can be murky. It's definitely a proceed with extreme caution situation, if you even consider it at all.
Okay, so sticking to the official carrier route seems much safer. What about timings and costs for that?
Well, the sources point out that different carriers have different speeds and policies. Some, like Verizon in the US, apparently have an automatic unlock after 60 days, provided the phone stays active on their network.
Oh, automatic is nice.
Yeah, but others, like AT&T, often need you to actively request the unlock, usually after your contract is totally done.
Okay.
And T-Mobile was mentioned as sometimes offering a temporary unlock just for international travel, which could be handy.
Interesting. And the cost? Is it expensive to get it unlocked officially?
That's a key point from the sources. The official unlock through your carrier, once you meet their rules, it's usually free.
Free. That's important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Those third-party services we talked about, they do cost money, usually somewhere between $30 and $150, depending on the phone and carrier. So yeah, free and official is the way to go if you can.
Okay, so unlocking is clearly the best path for real eSIM freedom internationally. But it takes time. You need to meet the criteria. What if someone's traveling soon with a locked phone? Are there any alternatives the sources suggest?
Yep, there are a few workarounds if unlocking isn't going to happen before your trip. First one is the old standby. International roaming with your home carrier.
Ah, roaming. Famous for costing a fortune.
Historically, yes. And the sources acknowledge it's often the easiest technically, but can be very expensive. However, they also point out that lots of carriers now offer specific international travel packages.
Oh, right. Like daily or weekly passes.
Exactly. Those can make roaming much more predictable and affordable than the scary per megabyte rates of the past. So it's definitely worth checking what your carrier offers now.
Okay, good tip. Check the current travel packages. What else?
Another really effective option is using a portable hotspot device.
Like a MiFi, those little mobile Wi-Fi pucks.
Precisely. These gadgets can take a physical SIM card or sometimes even an eSIM themselves. You put the international SIM or eSIM into the hotspot, and then your locked phone just connects to the hotspot using Wi-Fi.
Ah, I see. That completely sidesteps the phone's lock, doesn't it?
Totally. The phone thinks it's just on a regular Wi-Fi network. It's a great way to get internet for your phone, your laptop, whatever, without worrying about the phone's lock status at all.
Clever. Any other alternative?
The sources also mention dual SIM physical, but only if your phone supports it.
Meaning if your phone has both an eSIM and a slot for a regular physical SIM card.
Yes, many newer phones do. The idea is while your eSIM function might be locked down by the carrier, the physical SIM slot might not be subject to the same lock. So you might be able to buy a local physical SIM card when you arrive in another country and just pop it into that slot.
So it's a maybe.
It's a maybe. Not guaranteed for every phone or carrier, but definitely something to investigate if your phone has dual SIM capability and you can't get the eSIM unlocked.
Those are really useful workarounds. But stepping back, how does someone even figure out if their phone is locked in the first place? Before they leave, before they buy that international eSIM?
Good question. The sources give two main practical ways to check. The most direct way is what they call the immediate practical test.
Sounds straightforward. How does it work?
You need to get hold of a SIM card from a different mobile operator than your current one. Could be a friend's SIM, a cheap pay-as-you-go SIM, maybe a trial SIM if a carrier offers one.
Okay, got it. A SIM from another network.
You put that other SIM into your phone. If the phone connects to the new network, you see the network name appear. You can make a call or use data, then your phone is unlocked.
And if it doesn't?
If you get an error like SIM not supported, network locked, or it just refuses to connect to that other network, then yep, it's locked. The sources say you can try the same thing with an eSIM from a different carrier if you have an easy way to test that.
Okay, that's pretty definitive. Try another carrier SIM. If it works, unlocked. If not, locked. What's the other method?
The other way is to check by IMEI.
IMEI. That long number.
Yeah, every phone has a unique 15-digit international mobile equipment identity code. You can usually find it in your phone's settings, look under About Phone or General, or sometimes by dialing #06TAG.
Okay, I have the IMEI. Then what?
There are lots of websites online, IMEI check databases, where you can type in that number.
And these websites can tell you the lock status.
According to the sources, yes. A good IMEI check tool can often tell you the status del bloco, locked or unlocked. It might also identify the origin operator, the carrier it's locked to, and sometimes even give info on its international compatibility. Just, make sure you use a reputable, well-known checking service.
Right. Be careful where you put your IMEI. Okay, looking ahead now, this whole situation with eSIMs and locks, it feels like it's evolving. The sources mentioned the future of eSIMs and carrier lockdown.
Yes, definitely seems to be movement towards more openness. One big factor is regulatory trends.
Like governments stepping in.
Exactly. The sources highlight the EU, for example, and other regions are bringing in stricter rules. These often require carriers to automatically unlock phones after a certain time has passed, sometimes even if the original contract period technically isn't over yet.
Oh, that could make a huge difference if it becomes standard everywhere.
It really could. And then there's technological evolution.
How so?
Well, the sources mention new eSIM architectures being developed. The way eSIMs themselves work might change, potentially making it harder for carriers to enforce these kinds of locks.
Interesting.
Plus, you've got the big players like Apple and Google apparently pushing for more open standards, making it easier for you to switch eSIM profiles.
So pressure from regulators and from the tech giants pushing for more user freedom. That sounds promising for the future.
Hopefully.
Okay, let's bring it all together. To wrap up, what's the core practical advice for international travelers that the sources emphasize?
It really comes down to planning ahead and making smart choices. First, some advice before purchase. If you can, always try to buy unlocked phones from the start. It just avoids all this hassle.
Simplest solution.
If you are getting a phone on a carrier plan, check their unlocking policy before you sign up. Understand the rules, the waiting periods.
So you're getting into.
Yeah. And think about the total cost, That subsidized price might look good, but factor in the potential pain of unlocking it later if you travel a lot.
Good point. What about the travel planning itself?
If your phone is locked and you need to unlock it, start that process with your carrier early. Give yourself at least 2-3 weeks before you leave. Don't leave it to the last minute.
Okay, plan ahead for unlocking.
If you're going the international eSIM route with your now hopefully unlocked phone, try to test it before your trip if the provider lets you activate it early. Better to sort out any issues at home.
Good call. Test before you go.
And finally, always have a backup plan. Know what your home carrier's roaming options are, even if it's just for emergencies.
That's all incredibly practical advice. So pulling it all together from the sources, the main message seems pretty clear. International eSIM tech is awesome. Huge potential for easy travel connection. But carrier-locked phones are the big roadblock stopping many people from actually using that potential right now.
Yeah, and the sources are united on this. The most reliable, legitimate way past that roadblock, the way to get that true eSIM freedom, is official unlocking through your original carrier.
They basically conclude that yes, seamless, unlimited international connectivity is possible, but it takes preparation. And the single most important piece of that prep:
an unlocked phone, period.
It's interesting, the Bleevale blog, one of our main sources, they actually offer unlimited internet plans for travel, mentioning unlimited data, free roaming, no hidden costs.
Right. But as we've discussed, services like theirs, or any international eSIM provider really, can only work their magic if you bring an unlocked device to the table.
Or use one of those workarounds, like the hotspot.
Or the hotspot. The phone's lock status is still the key factor.
It really highlights that tension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Between the promise of new tech and the reality of older business models and restrictions. Which kind of leaves us with a final thought, something to chew on for the material. As technology keeps pushing towards more flexibility, more global standards, how much longer can these carrier restrictions really hold back that potential for truly easy, independent international connection for everyone?
We have reached the end of our episode on eSIM on blocked phones, the truth revealed. I hope it was useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and visit blivale.com for more tips and solutions. Thanks for listening, and until the next connection.